customer brought us a 1977 Corvette that needed a couple things done. We did Dakota Digital gauges, and that moved all of the gauges that were in the factory console into the gauge cluster. So that left us with redesigning the part of the console that actually went into the dash. You'll notice that this dash piece of the factory console has this lip that extends out that actually follows the curvature of the dash. This one's flat, and that's because when we send it to the upholsterer, they're going to make a perimeter out of wrapped fiberboard, and that's going to basically fill in the gap where this was. And these are the gauges that we removed and moved to the Dakota Digital gauge cluster. And we also installed a new vintage air unit in the car, and that took up a lot of space behind the dash. So when we went to install this new navigation unit, we were only really left with one option as to where to put it, and that was right where it's located now. So that kind of necessitated redesigning the whole console. The customers decided they wanted something a little more custom looking, something a little more updated than the 1970s console, so we went ahead and made one out of steel here with an aluminum shift cover plate. That way you have easy access to the shifter and all the electrical in there should a problem ever arise. A few other things that we swapped over from the factory console into the new one is this little rubber cover for the emergency brake, the window switches, and we actually went with some new vintage air style round vents rather than the factory style rectangular vents that were at the top. We put in the vintage air controller down here and a power port for charging cell phones or cigarette lighter, whatever he wants. This console is made out of 18 gauge steel and a sheet of aluminum for the shift cover plate. To make this, we use the sheet metal brake to make these bends along the parallel here, or along the horizontal. And then we use the bead roller to roll a radius into the sides of the top pieces. And then we cut out two flat pieces for the sides and join them in the center in the very back and rolled a bead down those for added strength. Probably the biggest challenge of this console was making the whole thing look cohesive around the placement of the head unit, which really had to be exactly where it is now because there's only centimeters around it behind the dash. Probably the most enjoyable part of this project was pulling out the ugly factory console and replacing it with something cool and custom like this.
We used the vintage air kit out of a 73 Vet. This Vet no longer uses the slide bars. We installed an electronic control panel that's also in the center console. The kit was relatively easy to install. We just followed the instructions. It supplied us with the hoses and the lines that we already needed. There was a few electrical connectors and a couple plug-ins, and it was up and running. The hardest part would be mounting the box under the dash. It's pretty restrictive under there. But once you get that done, the AC mounts really well, and the hoses and everything are relatively easy to install. The engine side came with several brackets that mount the AC compressor. They give you a recommendation of your belt size once you have your compressor mounted. There's one wire that comes out the compressor that runs to the wires that come through the firewall from the box. You plug that in, you route your hoses, and you're ready to go. In my opinion, I think the Vintage Air AC is a huge upgrade. While test driving this car, we'll turn on the AC and run it full blast to confirm that everything is working. It turns it basically into a small ice box. It works very, very well. Once the fabrication of the center console was done, we sent it to the interior shop to be wrapped in black leather. Now that it's finished, I think it looks very nice. With the double stitching and the rest of the interior in the car, it flows very well. It's streamlined, it got rid of some of the gauges, and it belongs.